Hey dudes, it's Lerald, and it's day 2 of Phrecia League, or maybe it's day 3 by the time this video's live. I don't know. It's opening weekend of Phrecia League, at least, and I just want to talk about two things in this video. My quick initial thoughts on Phrecia League, or Phrecia event, whatever it is, and then a breakdown on what I've done with my character so far, which, to kind of spoil it, it's going great. It's probably the best League starter I've ever played. It's definitely performing a lot better than I'm kind of used to with Toxic Rain. So let's get into it. All right, the Phrecia League. It's an interesting concept. Obviously, it's not a full-fledged league. You know, it's only planned to run for a single month, and all we really got out of the deal was like 19 new ascendancies and a reworked in-game juicing mechanic. We've also gotten Settlers League 3, which as I run around my town here, you know, it's coming together fine. I like Settlers League. I actually like it a lot, but considering that we've had it around for probably by the time we get the next PoE 1 patch, like 8 or 9 months, I would be okay with it not going core, at least for a while. It is pretty nice looking though. So much work went into this area that it probably will go core in some component, and that would be fine, right? But checking into your town every few hours to be like, oh, hey, Tujin, where's my boats? Like that kind of thing it's not the worst thing in the world. I just think it's something that probably shouldn't be in PoE. It feels more like a mobile game type of deal, and I would prefer that aspect of this not really be in the game long term. The rune crafting bench though, awesome. So that definitely needs to be sticking around for sure. I love the ascendancy concepts of this league. They're pretty crazy. There's just so much meat on the bones. The idol system, I think I was less enthusiastic about initially. I have a lot of idols. I have like 3-to-1 vendor rerolled, tons and tons and tons of idols, and I've gotten some pretty dope ones. Crystallized power, you know, the bonus from essences that like gives you a bunch more off of the random ball, like off of the boss. That's pretty cool. Yeah, here we go. Destructive play. I got this very early on, so being able to have 1 to 3 extra bosses on all of my Maven witnesses was pretty dope for kind of doing the initial Maven pushing was really like that's pretty fun. I like having gotten that pretty early on. And it's just been kind of a fun system, like much more than I expected it to be. I didn't hate the idea. I just didn't really have a strong feeling about it one way or the other than, you know, it's new and that's something. Then day 1, I pretty much got nothing but like ritual, delirium, and betrayal idols, which was awful. It was super dangerous doing delirium on the start of the league with like no synergy. It was just an awful combo between those 3. But then day 2, I kind of switched away from delirium and ritual and finally got into expedition and legion, and I've been having a much better time since that point. Overall, I think I prefer the original Atlas passive tree. I mean, of course I do, but I like the randomness and the amount of juicing that's possible through the idols. There definitely is a lot more juice a lot quicker than you get out of the Atlas passive tree. I am having to make some tough business decisions with my setup as well. Like, this is what my setup looks like right now. You know, I've got a lot of things in here where, like, there's some stuff that is potentially very good. Harvest Monster dropping extra life force. I'm not really doing anything with Harvest right now. I'm more going for, like, the rarity and the Smuggler's Caches because I'm doing a lot of heist stuff. Divination cards from strong boxes being duplicated. That would be cool if I had better synergy with strong boxes, but I don't right now. You know, just a lot of other stuff coming from essences that is like, or from idols, I should say, that is interesting. You know, I wish I had more synergy with some of these things like essences. Haven't quite put all the pieces together to really make this work, and it might take a little while, which is maybe kind of a big downside compared to the tree. But again, as a fun experience, I think I'm like experiment. I think I'm okay with it. I also think it's just kind of fun to have a lot more stuff in my maps than I normally would in a standard, more optimized setup. Like I am having Legion and Heist and Expedition and Essences and Strong Boxes and a whole bunch of other stuff showing up in maps, sometimes Harbingers even. You know, it's not as efficient, but that's okay. I'm kind of just vibing with it. It's been pretty fun. The Ascendancies are definitely the star of the show, though, and I hope we are able to hang on to some pieces of that moving forward. 1 month is definitely not enough to enjoy them all, but with a big PoE 2 update coming out sometime around that point, I figure that's why this was initially slated to just run for 1 month. I'm very excited for Huntress and PoE 2. I love Javazon and Diablo 2, and I have high hopes in PoE 2 for 2025 to be the year of the Spear. Alright, so now let's move on to the build, and I'll put a link to the POB for this in the description. Like I said, I did wind up playing a Power Siphon Locus Mine Whisperer. Really hard to not say Trickster there, and I did actually level or run through most of the campaign as Daughter of Oshabi, just because of this node right here, Oath of the Magi. I took this, and then I took the gems out of my boots and helm for 30 move speed and 60 all res, and I just ran with that for the whole campaign. I didn't even do my 3rd Ascendancy when I unlocked it. I just waited. I spent like maybe 2 hours doing heist before killing Kitava, and then before doing that, I went and did my 3rd ascendancy, and I farmed up enough regret orbs to spec out of the 10 points that I had put into Oath of the Magi, and then I took my 2nd ascendancy and I put it in Roots of the Grove just to see what that was like, and I actually liked it. But yeah, it was it's 5 points per ascendancy point to spec out, so it's 20 regrets worth of respecking. You get a lot of free regret or whatever respec points through the campaign, so it was only like a handful of regrets I actually needed. Specced out of that, specced into Whisper, took everything except We Know All with my first, going in. Took like There Is More, Have You Forgotten, and an Infinite Pursuit. And then killed Kitava, and that pretty much was that. I would say the run through the campaign was very, very smooth and easy. Definitely smoother and easier even than like the typical Toxic Rain Pathfinder, which has always been, kind of my favorite build to play for the last several years. I found the early map progression was also super easy. This build is obviously not very tanky. Like this is day 1 gear, bad gear, very it's definitely not the tankiest start, but that's kind of just the way it is with Ranger. I actually was surprised by how much more tanky I felt playing this character than I normally do playing Toxic Rain at this point in the early in-game progression. I think a lot of that just boils down to the fact that I have a shield with a decent amount of block chance on it. I've kind of had a couple of different shields that had 35, 39, 40% block, and that actually does wind up just giving you a lot of extra defense, especially when combined with just even a decent amount of evasion, over 10k evasion, over 40% chance to block. Obviously, the Fizz max hit is what it is, but, I really have not felt like that flimsy in the vast majority of content. And so I just kind of progressed through maps through day 1 and day 2, and then day 2 unlocked my 2 Void Stones from Eater and Exarch. That was pretty easy. I think I didn't upgrade into a 5-link until doing tier 15 maps or so. I was just rocking with a 4-link for quite a while, and I have added body armor, Kintsugi. I was using this for a while, just, as you can see, it really helps a lot with that initial kind of burst damage hit, 35% less damage taken if you haven't been hit recently, 100% increased evasion rating if you have been hit recently. No other real stats on it. It's not the greatest body armor, not the best long-term item, but it's a really good cheap item to run when you're kind of going through early progression on the character. And because it has no life on it, you can take this modifier, this mastery, 15% increased max life, if there are no life mods on the equipped body armor. And that actually works pretty well. If I were to pop that on instead of my Miracle Pelt here, I think my resistances would be a problem. I think that's ultimately why I swapped off that, and just simply I could, getting a 5 or 6-link Kintsugi was not really achievable at that point. Whereas, right now it might be more achievable, but, I'm kind of relying on my rare body armor to fix some resistance issues. And then also I kind of got lucky with just a Eldritch Currency roll and got a chance to block attack damage. Not my long-term end desired mod there, but still I'll take it. 46% block chance is pretty dank. Just one note I wanted to make here in editing is this synergizes pretty well with Wind Dancer. That 20% less attack damage taken if you haven't been hit by an attack recently is pretty good. The more evade chance after you've been hit by an attack synergizes really well with Kintsugi as well. Obviously, the downside of taking 20% more attack damage if you've been hit recently is really, really bad. So I kind of like both of those two together, or kind of neither of them, because the ability to get hit twice in a row, take less from one and then more from the second. Maybe that balances out if you're quick with your life flask, maybe, but then there's also a chance that maybe you life flask and you're back up to full, and that second hit overkills you, so that's not any good. They synergize together really well, so you can run them to pretty great effect when they're combined together. They kind of offset each other's bad sides. As for the boots, kind of the same thing. I got lucky with just a couple of Eldritch Currency. Got move speed on the boots as an Eldritch implicit. That's pretty good. And these are just kind of basic life, res, move speed boots. The Fizz is extra lightning damage. I don't think it's adding a ton, but it's adding, a tiny bit of extra damage, which is fine. The real thing here is I just got, I wouldn't say lucky. I actually did throw most of my essences or Eldritch Currency into my helm here and fished for damage per power charge. That's a pretty good damage add. And then mana reservation, efficiency of skills. Not mandatory, but it definitely helped alleviate some of the mana issues. I can sit and do this in my hideout. I can just sit and right click down, and I'm never really running out of mana. Like, I'd have to sit here and just truly right-click for, like, a very, very, very long time to actually run out of mana. And you're never going to be standing still and fighting an enemy, like, like that long. So a little bit of mana reservation efficiency somewhere, either like on your helmet or on a piece of like a jewel or something, can help out a tiny bit. You know, because we're not using an Enlighten yet, and I am still trying to run 250% auras. I'm running Wrath, Grace, and then Skitterbots as well. So we're running like quite a lot of reservation, and then also playing Mines. So mana reservation is definitely like at a premium. I'm taking Charisma. I'm taking Influence. I'm taking this wheel here, Efficient Explosives, and then I'm also taking this setup here, Deep Thoughts, for a bit of int mana regen, and then of course the mana reservation efficiency of skills, mastery. That's really kind of the big key there, and all of that comes together to make it so that it's like very achievable. The mana is, I've never had to think about a mana flask basically since the swap over to Power Siphon Mines. I really just haven't thought about Mana Flask at all since then, but certainly not at any point throughout the end game. The only time that I ever had any concerns about mana was one time I ran a heist that had no regen on it and didn't realize it, and I walked in, I started throwing mines, and had no mana, and so I just had to throw away that heist contract, but that's the only time at any point. So in terms of like progressing through the character though, I did pretty much everything, like I said, up to a tier 15 or tier 16 or so on a 4-link, and then I kind of realized like I should be at least running a 5-link, so I bought this for, I don't know, like 50 chaos or something, and then I breezed through getting through tier 15s and 16s and Void Stones and finishing the Maven quest and all of that. I'm probably not going to do the other 2 Void Stones on the character in this build setup because, you know, I kind of want to play around with some more like traditional mana stackery stuff, but maybe I'll push closer to, well, I'll definitely push closer to getting the other 2 Void Stones in this setup, but I kind of have some ideas on some stuff I want to transition out of this and into. But in terms of just my initial goal of this character being something that I could play on a super shoestring budget, like genuinely less than 1 divine, even, certainly less than 2 divines, and go get 2 Void Stones and be set up to then transition into a mana stacking build, I think it has been a smashing success. I think it was much better than I could have even hoped. The clear is amazing. The single target damage is amazing. You know, like just to show off that single target damage here in PoB, we're pushing pretty close to 4 million DPS in single target with everything set up. So that's pretty easy to do. We have a couple of cooldowns here. We have Sniper's Mark. You press that on a boss 1 time and it's on there permanently. So that's easy. Then you have Arcanist Brand that is hooked up to Punishment Curse, which gives you, what is it, like 50-60% more damage on enemies when they're on low life, so that's half health and below. That's pretty good. And then it also is giving Tornadoes, which reflect damage based on you know, damage they take from your Power Siphon projectiles, and then also Flame Wall. You know, your Power Siphon projectiles can pass through that and get some added flat fire damage as well. So I'm throwing down Arcanist Brand on them periodically, mainly just to maintain the punishment. And then at points, I'm using Sigil of Power. It's kind of hard to stay in Sigil of Power all that effectively, but if you can, you know, that's a pretty huge damage increase. And so, like, all of that fully min-maxed, you know, projectiles have traveled through the Flame Wall where it max Sigil of Power stacks, the Punishment Curse is up, all of that. We're pushing pretty close to 4 million DPS, except that's not including the damage from Return Proj, because Return Proj is like 39% more damage, and it just doesn't get calculated. You know, like if I flick it on and off, it doesn't do anything. So if we actually add that in correctly, we're actually looking at over 5 million DPS, which is pretty dope. And I'm definitely feeling that. Like, I had a pretty easy time killing the 2 bosses for the Void Stones. Like, I really didn't have much trouble with that, and at that point I hadn't even folded in the Sigil of Power component of it, and I wasn't really making that great use of Arcanist Brand. It was pretty much just marking and then running around and right-clicking. Now, obviously, the defense of that in bosses is don't get hit, which, yeah, just don't get hit, right? So that is maybe the biggest issue I have with this build long-term, is some of the maintenance is a little bit intensive, and obviously the gameplay loop of having to click away from your character for the Locus Mines it can get a little tiring. So, you know, that would be maybe the only negative I really have to say. This is a pretty amazingly powerful skill archetype. Like, I could, not that I'm going to, but I think you could genuinely, like, start a Pathfinder with Locus Mine, Power Siphon, and that would work. You could do it with like anything. Marauder, Witch, it doesn't matter. Just anything could start Locus Mind Power Siphon and completely demolish the game. It's just such a powerful combo. So I have been spending a lot of time doing heists on this character. It's a pretty good little heister. I think the reason for that is just simply it has a good amount of evasion, and then it has a shield with, you know, combined with the body armor, it's like 46% block chance, so it just makes it pretty easy to stay alive in heist. And that's exactly what I've been doing, just been kind of zipping through heists, and I do like heist. I hadn't really touched heist in regular Settler League, so it's been kind of nice to do it this time around. Having a pretty good time with it. Other than that, I think the main things that have really changed from the setup that I had kind of cooked up before was I dropped the Arcane Cloak. I felt like I didn't have enough mana for that at all, and I added in Immortal Call. You know, that's obviously working really well. I dropped the dex stacking as well. I didn't come down here and take any of the dex stuff. I would like to in more of a dex stacking build, but this build just isn't... You know, I'm not getting enough decks. You can see I'm under 300 decks. A lot of the really good items for deck stacking are wildly expensive. So rather than even go into that, just try and keep the budget super, super low. And that's obviously been working pretty well. Another thing that I kind of realized, like, I don't know, maybe like a day or so later than I should have, was Anointing Amulet, getting Prodigal Perfection. Obviously, that's pretty great. Very cheap, clear into Azures. That's like a couple of chaos. It's like 7% more damage. That's pretty good. There are some uniques in here that I just simply haven't gotten my hands on because they're expensive. Maryland's Fallacy. This is something that normally would be very, very good. My crit chance, because I swapped to a wand that doesn't really have that high of base crit, I'm still capped at the moment, but if I were to swap to Maryland's, I think I would be, under 80%. Actually close to 70%, so I'd have to get a wand that has better crit chance for this to really work well. This has been pretty expensive. I have a better trading link that I will put under the description of the video as well. Yeah, I'll copy that export code, and share that. But this just has like a collection of uniques. You don't have to use all of them, but some of them can be quite good. Deidre's Tenure, this has been a godsend. This has been worth so much damage, and it was a couple of chaos, you know, like 15-20% more damage for a couple of chaos. That's pretty good. Hypothetically, though, you could run Thunderfist and then like set your main 4 link up in that for like a pseudo 5.5 link. That could work pretty well. Maryland's Fallacy is a good amulet that you can use. Fractal Thoughts is an option for your helm. Mind of the Council seems like it's the better of the 2 helm options, but, you know, quite a bit more expensive, as you can see. Crown of the Inward Eye is also a unique helm option. Very cheap by comparison. Has a pretty wide roll range, so getting a better rolled one might be kind of more expensive. And then Garakan's Flight, that's kind of the boots that I would long-term want to play in this Ascendancy, but obviously you can see quite expensive right now. Pretty high demand and pretty low supply on those, so just rocking with like rare boots for the time being, and really not feeling bad about that at all. So anyway, that's the character. I definitely still have a lot of upgrading and stuff to do. You know, I finally got a bleed immunity flask, but like I don't even have my other flasks automated. I don't really think a Stibnite flask is all that great either. Like there are a lot of other options you could potentially go for. You know, that's just kind of the one that I've gone with for the time being, but definitely a lot more work to do on the character, but I've been really enjoying it so far. It's definitely been exceeding my expectations. Alright, I hope this helps, especially if you were playing this build as your league starter. I think for the budget, it's been an absolute success, like just a completely amazing starter that totally exceeded my expectations, and it's going to transition into something more mana stackery, kind of more traditional, but, you know, that'll probably be my next update. It should be pretty fun, and either way, I'm really enjoying the character a lot. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like it, and if you want to support us even further, consider becoming a channel member. Thanks for watching, and keep having fun in Phrecia League. Bye.